Okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Hey guys, it's Caitlin Sheffer and my little assistant here, and we are back with another really fun tutorial. I recently started a brand new sketchbook and I'm working on a review for you, but today I wanted to just go ahead and show you what I worked on today, which is Moody rainbows. A few days ago, I launched a new clip art collection in my Etsy shop. So rainbows were kind of on my mind, but I wanted to get away from the traditional pinks and peaches and try something a little more moody. So when I was doing my color chart activity, I really found that I was drawn to these moody blues and grays that you can make from mixing indigo, Payne's gray, phthalo turquoise, maybe throw in some raw umber. Those beautiful colors just created the most calming color palette. So I decided to make some new rainbows with this really beautiful scheme. All you'll need for this activity is some watercolor paper, some paint, some water, and a flat shader or a squared tip brush. I really like this Princeton Heritage Series flat shader. This is a size 8 and it was perfect for these little rainbows in my sketchbook. If you don't have a brush with a squared edge, that's fine. You can use a round brush as well. It's just a little bit hard to keep the shape nice and sharp. All right, well, I'd love if you follow along with me and watch how I paint these rainbows. This is a really good exercise in learning how to control your brush. I usually paint with a round brush, so using this flat shader is a little bit of a challenge. It's not too hard to go up and down or side to side, but putting that curve in the top of the arch of the rainbow is really a lot more challenging than it looks. My tip for you is to just go slow, lift up your brush as needed, and gently twist the brush between your fingers. Sometimes when you lift your brush up at the end, you'll see how the paint kind of puddles. So what I do is after I lift up my brush, I push the extra paint around to spread it out. You can see on my first arch that there's a little bit of some pooling at the bottom of the rainbow on the right side, and you can avoid that by spreading the paint around after you lift up your brush. I don't really have enough room right here to put the full brush down. There's not enough space in the arch. So I turned the brush sideways and used the edge of the brush to make the third arch. This time I added a little more turquoise so I can get another really fun color.
Someday I will find you, shooting star, you belong in.
Again, it's really tricky to turn that brush, but you can do it with some practice. What's fun about these modern rainbows is you don't really have to feel pressure to go from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. You can do whatever you want. Some of them I go from dark to light, some of them from light to dark, and some of them with really no pattern at all. I love doing exercises like these in my sketchbook because it just really helps you refine your basic skills as an artist. the more you practice and the more rainbows you get on your page, the better your arches will become. It'll be smoother, your fingers will be more used to the motion of twisting the brush between your fingers. And you'll also get better at smoothing out the paint so it doesn't puddle up as much. I really like how in this last arch, it touched the middle arch a little bit, and so the darker indigo paint kind of bled into it, which is just so beautiful. I love that organic watercolor look.
In my hand, in my hand. Would I be the same without you, without you? The sky won't ever change without you, without you.
This time I'm going to do, instead of 3 rainbows across, I'm just going to do 2 larger rainbows so that I can practice those turns, that curve a little bit better. The smaller you start out with, the harder it is to make that angled curve. So I would suggest that if you're new to this, that you start off with a really wide arch. That way your middle arch isn't as hard to turn. This is an example of starting with a lighter color and then getting darker as you go down. I added in a little bit of Jadeite Genuine to that last arch, and I love how it complements the indigo. It's okay if your arch gets a little bit wiggly, a little wobbly. Mine did right there, and you can either go in and smooth it out or you can just leave it as is. I kind of like the little imperfections of it. I can already tell it's getting easier to make this curve and intentionally have some of the arches touch. Sometimes I like that effect, sometimes I don't, but I think it's good to practice. And this is just an example of how you can smooth out the paint that has puddled up at the end. For this one, I'm gonna mix up varying shades of indigo and get darker with each arch. This one's a little bit darker. Getting better with making my little arch. It's becoming more fluid. That's why it's so important to do these practices. Even though I do activities like this all the time, I feel like I get better just from the beginning of my exercise to the end. And now with the third arch, I'm going super dark, which is basically just straight up indigo with very little water in it. I kind of tap, if I see any areas with paint kind of missing, I can just tap the brush lightly and the pigment will flow out of the bristles onto the paper and it'll just look a lot more opaque. All right, I'm gonna finish up with these last 2 rainbows and add a little bit of green just to kind of tie in from the fourth rainbow I did that had a little bit of green in it. Let's see how these ones turn out.
I'll go chasing rainbows near or far. I'll color your world. Ooh. Someday I will find you, shooting star. You belong in my hand, in my hand. Would I be the same without you, without you? The sky won't ever change without you, without you.
I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and that you'll hit subscribe so that you can be updated every time a new video is posted. Next week, I'll be sharing all about my exciting new sketchbook challenge. Stay tuned because it's going to be awesome.